folks, On Target Training in Oregon. We're now a couple weeks into the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of us have been asked to stay at home by our state and local governments, and some of us can't even go to the range anymore because that range may have temporarily suspended activities due to the COVID-19 virus. So several people have written in and they said, hey, what should I do? I want to keep working my skills, but I can't go to the range. Well, there are so many drills that you can do dry that will help you maintain proficiency, and ultimately when you get back to the range, you will find if you do these every day that you have improved significantly in terms of your overall performance. So the first thing we always have to do when doing dry drills is we have to make sure the condition of the firearm is completely empty. So if you're looking to do dry practice, please remember the 4 rules of firearm safety and start with rule number 1. Assume the firearm is loaded, and I, as the user, need to know the condition of that firearm. We're going to do some drills. So what kind of drills can you do? Well, again, we've confirmed the gun is unloaded. I also have a magazine here with dummy rounds in it. And to start with, some of the most basic drills that you can do are just press drills on the trigger. So again, we know the gun is unloaded. I know the area that I'm pointing the gun to is safe. I can't hit anyone if I didn't confirm the gun was unloaded, so I've got a safe spot. So I can just work my press out, finding that front sight. And you notice, guys, I'm going really smooth. I'm not trying to show you how fast I can go. I'm trying to be smooth and consistent. So on target, on trigger, off target, off trigger, right? I can also work on breaking the trigger. Again, we know the gun is unloaded. Work on my presentation, come out, break the trigger. And as I break the trigger, the gun should not move. This is the most standard press drill that most of you guys are familiar with. But I can do this, and that will help me develop better trigger management overall on the gun. So I can also have some fun with a shot timer. So with a shot timer, I can set a par time, a beginning and an end. And let's see what we've got this guy set up for. So we've got a par time of 2 seconds. And all I'm trying to do here is get a smooth presentation and break the shot within 2 seconds. Again, that's a pretty slow par time. But right now, we're not trying to show skill. We're not trying to go super fast. We're trying to give you guys a sense of how you can use the shot timer to work on some basic fundamental skills. So what I'm trying to do, guys, is as I get the gun in a firing position, I'm coming out, I'm seeing the front sight where it should be on my target, and I'm trying to break the shot without the gun moving. So, simple drill with our shot timer. So the other good thing I like to do is I like to do some of the basic sort of manipulation drills, switching out mags, practicing that. Doing it with my eyes closed. And this really gives you some level of confidence that if you can do this with your eyes closed, even if it's not the most smooth thing in the world, you're able to have the confidence that you have some level of proficiency that if you couldn't see, you could still swap out mags. So again, another simple example of how the weapon manipulation in dry practice can help you be a better and more proficient and, super important, safer shooter. All right, let's talk about malfunction clearance drills. Something a lot of people talk about, but not a lot of people practice. So again, we've got an unloaded gun here. We've got nothing in the chamber. I'm going to simulate a type 1 malfunction. I get a click instead of a bang. So out here, press, tap, rack, and back on the trigger. Now I'm back on the trigger, but I'm not pressing it. So it's tap, rack, assess. We can also have brass in the feedway. Rare that this happens, but anything can happen. It's the same drill. So obviously I'm going to see it because it's a stovepipe, right? So type 2. Squishy trigger brass. I'm going to tap, I'm going to rack, and then I'm going to come back on point. When I'm back on point, I am assessing. I am not pressing the trigger. We're not trying to see how fast we can go, although it certainly looks cool. What we're trying to do is make sure that our weapons manipulation is completely safe. We've talked about our different malfunction clearances, the type 1 and type 2. Now we're going to set up a type 3 malfunction. So again, we're still using the same dummy rounds. We're going to insert a round into the chamber, insert the magazine, again with dummy rounds, and we're going to drive the slide forward, drop the slide. So now what we have is the classic double feed. We have brass in the chamber, so a round in the chamber, another round pressing up against it. So if we were working the drill, same thing, we get squishy trigger, we tap, we rack, nothing happens. Immediately I'm going to pull back on the slide, lock it to the rear, strip the magazine out, work the action briskly 3 or 4 times, insert a new mag, and then I should be back on point. So that process is really about knowing how to manipulate the gun and do it in a safe way. Once again, brass in the feedway, brass in the chamber, the other round pressing up against it. I go out here, I press out, I get squishy trigger, tap, rack, doesn't fix it. I'm going to lock my slide to the rear, strip out the mag, and get back on. And again, as I'm getting back on the trigger, doesn't mean I'm pressing the trigger. It means I'm ready to go. If you're new to this, then the best thing to do would be to do all that stuff, get back out, have your fingers straight. The reason we want to train without pressing the trigger is if we had to do all that, and there was a bad guy out there, and the bad guy turned and started running because he said, wow, that guy knows how to operate that gun. If I train myself to automatically, after any of these type 1, type 2, or type 3, press a trigger, I will do that under stress. So what I like to do is I like to practice that and then assess. So tap, rack, assess, or with that type 3 malfunction, tap, rack, then lock the slide to rear, strip the slide out, work the action briskly 3 or 4 times, new mag up and in, chamber around, and get back on assess. So guys, that's just a few of many drills that you can practice, not just with handguns, but also with carbines, reloading drills, trigger press drills, working on the skills and the fundamentals that ultimately makes us better shooters. So even if you can't go to the range, there's plenty of stuff that you can do in addition to loading mags and clean your guns. You can also dry practice. Strongly recommend it. Hey guys, really appreciate you watching. Finally, and as always, stay safe.